everyone, welcome back to Jeff and Paper Gary. It is Saturday, someday, I don't even know what date it is. It's in July, June, end of June-ish, sometime, I don't know. Doesn't matter because I'm here in the garage working, and as I told you in the last video, I was going to work off camera to button up that elevator, the left elevator, and I did. Got my new hydraulic squeezer fixed, so thanks to T-Flight Tim, who told me what part number I needed for the little screw that goes in there, and I was able to order a bag, get that back in operation, and get all those rivets in. Now there are some rivets that are a little challenging on there, especially that left side, and even a couple areas where I had to go put a pulled rivet on. So we'll talk more about that later in the video. I'll try to get some imagery of that, and then we're going to get into the trim tab. And right now I'm trying to figure out where exactly to cut in that trim tab so that we do like we did with the elevator and put in the riblet and seal it up with composite work like Tim and others have done. I want to follow that same method. So trying to figure out now exactly where I'm going to cut those lines to make sure I don't cut off something that I need later. So that's what we'll be working on today. Plans for tomorrow or next video is to roll that leading edge of both elevators and be done with those, and then go over to my friend's shop, use his brake to go bend the brackets that I need for the trim tab. So lots of work to be done, and let's dig into it. So stay tuned and let's see what we learn. Okay folks, what we're looking at here is this horizontal line of rivets that starts where the trim tab cutout is, the fourth rivet over. I had to put a pulled rivet in there because I just couldn't get in far enough with my bucking bar to buck that rivet. So I'm not sure if there's a better way to do that. I ended up with a pulled rivet there. The other thing I want to talk about is one of these rivets here. This one right here, as a matter of fact, it looks a little bit bigger. It's because it's an oops rivet. And if you look closely, there's a tab on that rib. And I screwed up the rivet on that one, had to drill it out, and when removing that rivet, I bent that tab in and I kind of made that hole a little bit bigger. So we ended up with an oops rivet in there. Now, I will say, anytime that we're removing a rivet and why I didn't grab that thing, oh, I know why I didn't grab that thing in the backside. I used the wrong length of rivet for the first time. I used a dash 3.5 and I should have used a dash 4, and when I bucked the rivet, there was no tail end of the rivet sitting out of there. So bad on me. When I drilled it out, I couldn't grab hold of it with the diagonal cutters to pull the tail out from the back side, so I had to pound it out from the front side with a punch. When doing that, I bent that tab. Even though I put a little block of wood in there to kind of hold it, I bent that tab over, which was no good. So in order to get the tab back in place, I had to use a drawdown calico and a one of the close quarter dimple dies that you use with the hand squeezing rivet gun and a finishing nail. Turned it around backwards so the flat side was up against the, or the cup side was up against the dimple, and used a drawdown calico to pull that down and flatten that piece of metal back, that tab back. So it was sitting nice in there, and then when I put the new rivet in, I had to upsize to an oops rivet because the hole got a little bit too big after punching that rivet through there. And then put a little piece of fuel line, a rubber hose over the rivet while I used a squeezer to install that so that it held that metal in place flat like it was supposed to be. So all in all, it turned out okay, but I did have to go ahead and use an oops rivet there. So on to the trim tab, which I'm working on now. The trim tab, it's got a couple unique steps to this one. You'll see me going around here with a hand file. I did cut off the tabs, and I don't know if I had it marked in this video or not. I think I did. Yeah, I used the tin snips to cut off those tabs. And that was me just using the file to clean up those edges and make sure that I didn't have any sharp corners or any burrs or anything of that nature. So I really like to take my time on those, and you'll see me putting on my magnifying headset there so that I can get a really close look and do some nice job filing on those things. So the effort I think it takes in there is pretty minimal, and it turns out really nice. So putting this together, the other thing I want to note too is, and here you see me checking the trim tab to make sure that it's straight and flat on both sides. So if you read the instructions, they'll tell you If it bows too much, put your straight edge on there. If it bows too much in one direction, too concave, then you need to bend it a little bit more with some bending blocks at a localized place. If it's too convex, then you need to kind of tap on that trailing edge with a hammer, a block of wood and a hammer, to take some bend out of it until it's nice and flush. And you think you get those things pretty close until you see one that's perfect, and you're like, that is exactly how it's supposed to look. The rest of these things are not as close as I thought they were. So there's a lot of back and forth between tuning on that thing and making it nice and flush, or making it nice and even. And so what happened, and what I've realized here, and I should have addressed this a long time ago, the break that I made, those 2x8s or 2x10s, they're screwed to the front of my workbench. They're not even. And I think one of the boards is warped, or I didn't screw them together just right, but there's a little bit of drop to it. And so when you use that as a brake, it does not bend consistently throughout. Now, on larger pieces, I think it's not that big of a deal. On this smaller one, it happened to be a big deal. And I shouldn't say a real big deal. It just was not very consistent. So I took a lot of time to go clean that up and tune that up a little bit so that it was nice and flush all around. I have heard on other people's videos that if they have felt some flutter in their flight control surfaces during flight testing, that's kind of one of the first things that they'll go check all their flight control surfaces to make sure that they are flush, and they might even do a little bit of bending while they're on the aircraft there to kind of tune them up. So took some time to make sure that those things were as straight as possible, and then got into this part, putting the hinge, putting the hinge on there and drilling that. The instructions aren't great on the dimensions on where to put that. At least I didn't see anything. So if somebody sees something better than the 1/4 inch line and 3/8 inch line that they kind of depict in one of the pictures, then I'd love to hear a heads up on that and see exactly where that should be. I just kind of made it work. So hopefully when the two pieces go together, it looks all right. Now, one thing I will say is that the hinge that I have looks like somebody had cut it, like the previous owner had cut it, and so I don't know if there's enough length to bend the end of it over and safety wire it the way it's supposed to be, so I might have to get some new material or find a solution to that. But the buildup of the trim tab doesn't seem to be all that difficult. Take your time with it. Understand that there are some machine countersink things, and so don't go dimpling everything as soon as you take it apart like I did previously. And then the brackets that you mount to the bottom of the trim tab that attach to the push rod that the actuator moves, those things go together and then they get trimmed down depending on which type of trim system you're using. So if you're using an electric trim tab or trim tab servo, they tell you to cut a certain portion of it off. If you're using a manual trim, they tell you to do something else. So that's really all there is to this video. Kind of short, kind of sweet, but some lessons learned on that elevator for sure. And I'm gonna hand it back over to past Jeff, or whoever Jeff it is that does the outtake. So here you are. All right, everyone, it is getting late in the afternoon, and that means shop cleanup time. Made pretty decent progress today, so we got all the rivets in. Had some issues with a few of those, but nothing insurmountable. What else? We're at the point where I need to get some friends over to roll the leading edges of both elevators. So hopefully I can get some guys to come out here tomorrow and give me a hand. The trim tab's going well, made some progress on there as you saw, and should be getting that close tomorrow. I've got to go make 2 of the little riblets on each ends like we did for the left elevator to close in that area so that we can fill it in with composites later. So I'll be working on that tomorrow morning. And then also, can't forget about those brackets like I mentioned earlier, to go over to my friend's shop and fabricate those brackets. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Really appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. This is Jeff and Paper Gary out.